Hello and welcome to an inspirational community collaboration. This is, what are we, Witchy Wednesday. Yes, we are Witchy Wednesday, and I am sporting my favourite witchy outfit and a new witchy ring I've got. It's very witchy, yeah? Witchy, wizardy, magical and creative. Please like and share this film as I'm doing now. The pre-start, I'm always liking and sharing. Share to any groups you've got, blah, blah, blah. This is the last week at this time. There's going to be a week break next week, and then we're going to start at 9 till 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Pacific Standard Time. Today's guests are fantastic magical beings in this wizardy, witchy Wednesday. We have Anders Gustavsson. Did I do that right, Anders? Gustavsson. Anyway, Gustavsson. Anders?
Yes, hello.
All right, okay. And then Ian.michael.Hebert is coming on. I don't know if he'll like the R in his herb, but yes. Whew, God. Okay, and so today we're talking about basically community and collaborative community design. And what is the magic that's behind collaborative community design? What's necessary for it? So without further ado, let's go over to meet Anders. Anders, good afternoon of evening.
Hello. Good to be with you.
It's great to have you here. So tell us about what you've got going on over at Heartland. Or no, you know what? Scratch that. Tell us about yourself. What's your background? I know you've been in business and entrepreneurial, and then give us a lowdown of where you came from too.
Sure. Thank you. I've had a pretty interesting life. I came over here from Sweden actually when I was 11. So I'm a first generation American, and came to land of opportunity, and followed my dad. My dad was an tech entrepreneur, and he was successful. Had a beautiful exit. But what I learned through just watching him was that it ended up 6 years later in divorce, and I never really got to spend much time with him. And that, so I learned things from that. And one thing I learned from the very beginning was that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I wanted to create time and space and freedom, and I wanted to give back to my community and give back to the world in similar ways that he did. And so at the ripe age of 18, I started my entrepreneurial journey, and I had a handful of good ones and then a handful of bad ones. But every time I fell flat on my face, I was kind of 5'6" closer to I think where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And what I found really is about 7 or 8 years ago, I really found that the tech business and all the things that I was doing and how the world was set up, it just really wasn't designed in a way to help eco-conscious, social good entrepreneurs with business models that are designed to help kind of us as a collective in a way that helps people live more connected lives that weren't focused on just making money, and that were more focused on connecting us as humans. And so what I ended up doing was actually throwing a towel in on my last big startup about 7 years ago, and I moved up onto a mountain, and in the same way that kind of monks go into a cave and meditate and think about their lives, I did a similar thing, and I got into farming for a little bit, and I just spent a lot of time with plants. And farming wasn't necessarily the thing that I wanted to get into, but I really wanted to understand what was going to be my next thing, and why did I feel so unsupported as an entrepreneur, and what is it that the world is kind of missing in order to create more connection, more happiness, and a more an environment for people truly to thrive.
Right.
And I wanted to create that, and this was when business incubators were just kind of getting started, and co-working spaces were kind of just getting started, and I was at the very beginning of this, but I wanted to do something more. And I had also been studying permaculture quite a bit, and I had also lived in the jungle in a real estate venture that I had been part of before. And I spent a lot of time being in the jungle, and I really loved how lush it was, and I really loved how like the plants work with each other in these beautiful natural ways.
Right.
And if I could be a plant or a blade of grass or a monkey or a something, it's like that's where I would want to live.
Right.
And so I got really interested in how do we create that? How do we create that type of a living environment for people and for humans? And then how do we scale that? And that really became kind of my next mission. And so I'm really lucky to have an amazing relationship with my mother. And together we decided to buy a property and to develop it in such a way that we could start one of the first off-grid business incubators that's truly designed to give the people that are running the businesses that we run from here a lifestyle that is very, very, that gives back a ton to these entrepreneurs and gives them a lifestyle that puts them in the flow state as much as possible and gives them a space where they can grow their business, have recreation, have meditation retreats brought to them, yoga retreats brought to them, a place where they can recreate, and fresh food, organic food given to them, and really like put them at a place where they're most wild, their best, and their ideas and their businesses can actually function at the highest level possible for them. And so that's what Heartland Collective is destined to be. You know, we're creating a community here, and the businesses that we're launching are being launched from within the community. And then the community itself and the businesses are actually designed to be franchises of some sort to actually support other eco villages to help them also become financially profitable, and so to help them thrive.
Amazing. Tell us where you are.
I'm in around the Grass Valley area of California, about an hour from Sacramento.
Right, and Heartland is a collective that you, I mean, one of the things you wanted to talk about, which was, I love this notion of, is this intergenerational collaboration. Because I don't really think it's been done for a good 1,000 or a couple of thousand years. This notion of going in with different generations. Can you speak about the principle of that and how that honors the ecology of creating communities?
So I got into this with, like I said, with my mother, Annalena Shama Gustavsson, and we've been involved in a few different business ventures together before, and we've done quite a bit of personal development work together, and through doing that, I realized how rare it is for their kids and for their mothers or fathers to be doing a lot of personal development work together. And I also realized the more that we build this, how radically important it is to really heal these intergenerational relationships. Because if we're talking about different different changes in wealth and redistribution of wealth, it's like, if there's not enough trust built between younger generations and older generations, especially in the conscious field, it's going to be really sad. I think it's going to be really sad if we were to have even bigger financial collapses than we're seeing right now, and all of this money that could be potentially used to create a future for our future generations, if that's all lost, we're going to be in big trouble. So one of the things that I'm really inspired to do is to talk more about this and inspire more connection between the different generations, and inspire them to create models together and utilize us as an example. Because as that trust is built and as the generations can start working with each other, we're really tapping into a massive amount of wealth, which is going to be needed in order to build a lot of these different kind of eco villages
Right.
that we need to create.
Right. Right. What was the biggest? I mean, I think about this notion of calling up my mum and saying, "Hey, mum, let's buy some land together and live on an eco." Now, my mum is she's a different kettle of fish to your mum. Although, interestingly, there are similarities. But I think at heart, your mum, was a hippie in the day. I believe that's the case, and my mum was not. So it's okay to be able to bond with a hippie parent, but what do you do if your parents are bog standard parents?
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because it's actually not true.
Right.
Yeah, it's far from the truth. And if you knew her 5, 10, 15 years ago, she was very far away from seeming anything like that. I think it all started. I think she seems more like that to some people because she's very young at heart.
Yes.
And she spends a lot of her time with younger people because it's really, really challenging to be 75 years old and be in a movement, which is a movement that we're part of, when she feels so alone. And when so many people that are elders don't actually have a foot in this next phase
Right.
of the type of living that we're trying to create, I think she happens to just assimilate more with younger people, which
Right.
makes her maybe seem like she's more open and she's more hippie-ish. But I don't think that's a requirement for anybody. And I think that what is a requirement is people just have to start looking at new ways, and then start
Right.
looking at, for example, all the things that are happening today.
Yeah.
What an amazing opportunity it is for anybody with partially open parents to say, hey, can we talk? Can we talk about
Right.
the wealth that we have left, potentially, if there is any wealth left? Can
Right.
we talk about what our future plans are? Can we talk about how we could potentially work together to co-create something right now? Is there interest to do that? Because I think disasters like this really offer amazing opportunities to begin discussions and conversations.
Yeah. I mean, it absolutely makes so much sense to begin this process of, if you want to build a community, if you want to have a community set up, to do it with your family first. But on the other hand, does it also not make perfect sense to not do it with the family and to choose your family as opposed to kind of it being selected for you?
For sure. Yeah, I think one of the main things which is really important in starting any type of eco community is that you have to really be on the same page with regard to the vision and where you want to go.
Right.
If
Right.
you're not on the same page just because you're blood family, I think that it's a really challenging thing and probably not advised.
So
Advisable.
yeah. So I mean, it sounds like from your experience, it'd be great to do some sort of video introduction, educational shorts to help people at this time who want to start the discussion with their family, and or even, I mean, I can see it can be extrapolated to just communities of friends as well. It doesn't have to be family. Surely the wisdom's the same.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest as a first step?
I mean, I think a first step is just to go out and witness, witness places like Heartland. There's many of them available, and I think experiences say so much more than an intro conversation.
Right.
I mean, trying to convince anybody to do anything from within the family can be really, really hard, and I think it's the wrong place to start from.
Right.
I think is to have experiences together, like we have a thing here, for example, every year called Collab Campout.
Yeah.
And it's an event really designed to bring families together, bring people together, and teach collaboration, showcase kind of what it's like to live off grid, and show that it's more than just it's way more than just a party. It's a lifestyle, and it's something that is doable and is being done. And look at all the growth, that can be experienced through that. So experiences, I think, is the best way to showcase that.
I mean, that's obviously great, but we can't do experiences at the moment. So if people are watching and they're like, you know what, I would like to have a community. I'd like to share the resources that we've got. My parents have something, I have something, my brothers have something. What if we all collaborated together and created like a village, a compound? What are the first steps in like forming the agreement fields and the notions of what it is that is going to govern it? How do you come up with the governing principles?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to do is to do your best and not start from scratch, and go spend time. Go spend time, invest money, invest whatever resources you can into other communities that exist out there, because there are many of them budding out there, and if you try to start something without ever having done it before,
Right.
You're going to be up for a lot of different challenges. And I only lived in one other community myself before. I've never done anything like this, and I was really just a bit optimistically delusional with regard to
Right.
everything that I would have to face and all the challenges we've been through. And it's I would have definitely spent much more time in other communities before doing this. But now I'm 6 years in, and I've learned a bit.
What would be some of the key things you would want to? I mean, obviously the advice of going and spending time and investing in other communities before you run. But, from your experience of the 6 years, what are some of the obvious things that you would recommend people to pay attention to?
Practice your patience a lot, and know that things aren't going to take 10 times longer than you would probably like them to.
Right.
And you got to kind of just think about which pathway that you want to take. There's a few different ways to go. If you have a bunch of money, you can hire a bunch of people and you can build everything out exactly like you want it. And then it's going to have a certain vibe. And then it's going to look exactly like the amazing community developer designed it to look. And that would be amazing. I mean, everybody loves driving a brand new car that has all the bells and whistles. You just get in there and everything's set. Everything's good to go. And it sounds a little bit like I'm really interested to experience your next caller, because it sounds like that's kind of what he's into and what he's been developing for a while.
You know Ian Michael though, don't you?
No.
Oh wow! You don't know Ian Michael?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's one I've been trying to connect you up with. Oh, he's brilliant. You'll like Ian Michael.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and I think it's a great option if possible for somebody to work with somebody like that to really set things up. So you set it up in the right way, because there's thousands of different mistakes that can be made along the way, and especially if you're working with a lot of different people that have a lot of different opinions. I mean, you might just never actually get started building anything,
right?
Depending upon which decision-making model that you would choose as a community. The easy thing comparatively for me and for my family has been that it's all the decision-making top level is really done by us, because we've been the investors in the whole thing.
Right.
And so we'll get to a point. I'm hoping we'll get to a point in the next few years where the vision is to put the land in a land trust and have the collective essentially own shares in everything it is that we're doing, and then that will put us in a place where we can duplicate the model and start Heartland Collective villages all around the world and have them all be integrated. But what's great about where we're at right now is that decision making is actually quite simple.
Right, because you are the top. There's no investors, and I suppose that's the problem with when we try and get money together to buy land, is to actually find people who are going to help and contribute, but aren't necessarily going to want to get involved in the in the running of it. So I mean, okay, so let's talk about like the balance of things. Permaculture is something that's come up quite a bit with different groups down, especially in Costa Rica, talking about permaculture. What is it you understand by permaculture, and how do you apply it to business and to people?
Well, what I love the most about permaculture is the concept of stacking functions, and that's, I think, the part of permaculture that I try to mimic as much as possible, to make sure that everything I create is also supporting something else. And so that's why the business models that we look forward to launching here in the future, the choices, we'll have many choices for various different ventures, but they have to, number one, serve us living here as a community. They have to, number two, serve the community itself and the visitors, that might come to the community for various different types of events. And then they also have to be scalable, so that they work, so that they become, financially regenerative for the business here, and have to be scalable in the sense that they could also be duplicated at other intentional communities. So that's like one of the ways we use that theory.
Nice. So what about businesses? I mean, this idea that, are we talking about communities that are to remove themselves from society, or is it an element of being integrated with society?
Yeah, our vision, and what I really enjoy also, and what I really think, is that there's not a right way and a wrong way. And what's really important, I think, is that for all the different visionaries out there that are creating their examples of what an eco-village may look like, they're going to have their own beautiful, unique version of it.
Right.
And right now, it's like we're thousands of people and visionaries with our individual kind of ways, and some people's version might work and some people's might not work. But what's beautiful, what I feel is really beautiful about it, is that there's so much collaboration and there's so much sharing, and it's like if something works for somebody else really well, they are most likely going to be willing and wanting to share it with us. And same goes for me with other people.
Right.
And yeah, it's a really beautiful thing about what it is that we're doing. So the businesses themselves, the model that we use is that it's a very integrated model. The living systems and business systems that we have here are designed so that the business models definitely function in the economy out there, and it provides income to. The vision is for them to provide income for the business owners, and also it gives back to the land and creates income for the land, so that can be used to purchase more land for the collective.
Yeah, it makes sense how it is. There's a sort of circle round. And what are some of the businesses that are coming out of Heartland?
So right now there's a few different phases which we're in. Right now we still are in a building phase. We're really teeing up still. One of the models which we're developing is our events model, and we have a handful of different events every year. We have Collab Camp Out, which I mentioned before, which is an kind of eco-village model where we share essentially what it is that we do, and we teach collaboration. And then we also have an ecstatic dance event hosted by an ecstatic dance group out of here.
Nice.
We have and then we have an event called Heartbeat, which is a fusion dance event. And then we're ramping up to have our yearly PDC here starting next March.
What's the PDC?
PDC is a Permaculture Design Certification.
Nice. Oh, right.
Yeah.
A certification. That's great. So
Yeah.
what goes on in that?
So it's a little bit too early to talk about. We've been trying to plan it for a few years. It's been something we've been really interested in. But we really just wanted to wait until the right time, and now we found the right teachers, and we're really ramping up a really exciting program which would integrate herbalism, and it would integrate social permaculture, and it would integrate utilizing permaculture as a business concept, and it would add a lot of entertainment and offer people an amazing opportunity to learn the skills they need to learn in order to build something like what it is that we're doing, or integrate permaculture into their own lives.
Now, of course, this whole COVID thing has shut anything down that's physically got people coming to. And Heartland had a couple of events on the books. And what are you doing to sort of manage this scenario, this lack of physical bodies?
Yeah.
What are you doing with your time, man?
What's that?
What are you doing with your time? What are you spending your time doing?
Yeah, it's interesting question because it's kind of the least exciting answer, I think, to anything, because business as usual for us.
Uh-huh.
We have a handful of really awesome projects that we're working on here currently, and all that it does for us is keep us more focused and more excited, and it actually gives us way more purpose in what it is that we're actually doing. We're in the process of really expanding all of our food gardens so that we can be able to support the amount of food not only that we need as a community, but the amount of food that we're going to need in order to bring full farm to table experiences for our 1 to 200 person events. And so we're building out that, and then we're also in the process of rebuilding our new makerspace. And the future vision of that is to have a full shop that has a full 15 foot by 15 foot by 15 foot 3D printer, so that we can print houses and we can print architecture and we can print all kinds of amazing things.
Wow. And so are you envisaging that people come to, for example, a collab, and they learn how to build a project, and it might be maybe somebody who wants to 3D print a house brings a big lorry with them, a big truck, and everyone works together to 3D print and to fix out this house, and it's just on the lorry, and then it drives off at the end of the weekend.
Yeah, that could definitely be a possibility.
Because then I suppose those people could then sponsor the event and have their house built for them.
Yeah, exactly. It's that's one of the future models. You asked before about what are the different business models that we're going to be having, and having this 3D printer on site. It's like building houses not just for ourselves, but most of the business models that we bring on board here are designed to be scalable for other eco communities. And so I found what entrepreneurs do is find problems. They find solutions to the problems. So because I've found a lot of problems and challenges in doing this myself, I know that every different Joe and Kathy that want to start an eco community are most likely going to be entering into the same challenges. So the business models that we're creating are designed to solve those challenges so that they can be utilized as a service to these other eco communities, and as a business model that those eco communities can use to fund their own communities.
Right. So what are you going to do? How are you going to output the wisdom that you've acquired from the community building?
How are we going to output the wisdom?
How are you going to share all that information?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm just neck deep in all of this stuff myself, and having a lot of fun doing it. And I just kind of feel like it is true that as we build it, they will come. The amount of new partners that have come on board the last 6 months, and the people that have been reaching out, wanting to be part of something like this, together collectively, we're going to co-create those different methods of getting all this information out there and integrating with other collectives. As of right now, I'm out there many hours a day, building garden beds and doing everything I can, and it's.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult in a way, because once you're involved with the community, it's like the community is the focus rather than all these other etheric communities that maybe are not created yet.
Right.
It's quite easy to get lost in the source of the community. Is it a bit like working for yourself, where there's never really an end to the day?
Yeah, to a degree it is, and to a degree I think that the more time I've spent on this and the more patient that I've begun with the process, the more acceptance I've had with the process, and I just love where I am. I love where I am right now, and we have right now. I've kind of had to put aside some of my business building desires, because I've just surrendered into the build process that we're into, and until somebody shows up that's as good as I am in these various different aspects of project management and community building, then I can't let that part go, because it's that part which is the driving force of taking the steps that we're taking. And right now I'm really excited about it, because we have this really prolific work trade, where we're part of many different work trade networks, and these people are coming in from all over the world. And right now we have, we've had people here from Chile, from Brazil, from Pakistan, from where else? From Costa Rica and from Ecuador, and a bunch from the U.S. And it's really beautiful and really amazing to really sit with these people and co-create with these people. And they're just here to help. They're here to make whatever happen. And I have gratitude. I have gratitude for all of them, and I think that it's a powerful opportunity for those people. And during this time, I've just also accepted that some of the other things that I might maybe want to spend time on doing with regard to business development and business building, it's worth it to instead spend time around the fire with people at nighttime, and spend time with, get to know people and honor them for being here and supporting what it is that we're doing.
Right. I mean, of course, everyone comes in with the good intentions. Everyone believes that their intentions are right and just in a way. I mean, my famous example is even Hitler thought he was doing right. And so, not comparing the people who are coming onto the community to Hitler, but the point is that everyone comes on with the notion of, okay, I'm really here to make a difference, blah, 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 blah. What is it, the important factors that interact with how well people get on? Are you using tools like astrology and the Mayan calendar and human design to see how working groups knit together? Or are you just kind of throwing them all together and see what happens?
We're just throwing them together and seeing what happens for the most part. I love human design. I love Gene Keys, and I love all of that stuff. And I think that's the direction where we're going in the future, and to really get these businesses working together and to offer courses for the businesses to really get to know business partners within the businesses to get to know each other. I think those things are amazing and really, really powerful. But right now we're talking about shoveling dirt and moving concrete blocks and digging holes and building fences and things that pretty much anybody can do, and what we have to keep things really solid and keep people accountable is a really powerful personal growth program attached to our work trade program. And so with that, we during the first month that people are here, we require that people read the 4 Agreements book by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's a basic book, and many people come here and say they've read it, before, but we request that they read it again. And every week we have a different questions with regard to all the different agreements, and then we share these within the community, and it's really powerful. And people are then able to, they're challenged to live up to the expectations that we collectively set on everybody, to be impeccable with the word, to not make assumptions, not take things personally, and to always do their best. And it's really beautiful to experience people start to, nudge and support each other in these different ways. And then the second month, if they stay longer than that, we require people to read Braving the Wilderness by Brené Brown. And in that book, people are just inspired to explore their own vulnerabilities and share their own vulnerabilities with others, and take their integrity to a new level. And it really creates an opening that creates a deeper bond and a deeper level of trust between everybody that's here. And then the third month, we get into there's 2 different books. One is called Tribal Leadership, and Tribal Leadership is a book that I'm really inspired by, because it takes the different types of leadership styles, and I consider what we're running here is like a level 5 leadership, and it's a very integrated and very powerful way to lead. And and the reason we have these books is that in essence, we're just slowly grooming people to see if they want to be with us long term.
Right.
And if they want to be with us long term, they understand our culture and they understand where we're going, and then I can slowly but surely hand off, different, they can lead our community meetings, and they can start leading new crews that come here, and they can start doing things, and they've been slowly kind of working at these things as they get here.
Yeah.
So yeah, to answer your question, I think we in a little, because we talk about all these things up front, and we have 6 or 7 pages of agreements that people have to sign before they step onto our property. Or sometimes I forget to have them actually sign it, but they'll read through it all,
right,
and then they sign the stuff when they get here. But so people know what they're getting into, and they know they're going to come here to work, and they know they're going to come here to grow. And it's very rare. I've only had to ask a couple people to kind of leave, and it's beautiful when all those things are in place.
So it sounds very important to create the clarity of expectations and the communication beforehand, before people are committed in. Clarify all the agreements that that are there. And have you got any images to show us? I know I'm not sure if you're set up for that. Have you got any images to show us of Heartland, of the work you're doing, of the Kiva and different things you're building?
Oh, that's a great question.
See if you can pull it up in the background while we're talking.
Yeah, sure.
Create agreements. I'm just writing down the agreement point to be. And I think that's probably what the impeccable with the word is, right?
Yeah.
Having the clarity and thought. And what about rules of conduct, of food, of being vegetarian, drinking alcohol, smoking weed, all those different things? What do you have in place in Heartland?
We have we're definitely I don't have them here in front of me, but essentially it's we are a drug-free environment, and we don't say that people can't smoke or people can't drink, but we don't encourage it. We have a smoking section where people can go and do that if they choose to do that.
Right.
But it's not something that that we do. We're definitely we want to be considered as a professional venue, and we want people that come here to feel that. And we have people that come here regularly for Airbnbs and for other types of other seminars and other types of stays. And so the people that come here on work trade know that they're working at a professional venue.
Right.
And we have a weekly meeting every Monday where we come together, and it's called Fika. And that's kind of when we talk about all the things that are happening in the collective, and we talk about the projects that we have going on, and we talk about how we're all feeling and what we all felt happened the last week, and what we celebrate, what we completed, and we talk about our goals for the next week. And then it's a powerful experience. And we also have a daily check-in as well. Every morning we get together, and then we come together and we let everybody know. Once again, it happens in 15-20 minutes. So it's just a quick check-in on how everybody's doing, and if anything's up that they need to talk about, and then we talk about the projects, and then we get the day rocking.
Nice. And I suppose, as you're saying, you're not really that affected by the COVID situation, except there aren't more people coming into you. Like daily life on the farm, on the ranch, is pretty much the same, right?
Right. Yeah, and starting now, May 1st, we are actually opening the doors. We've been on lockdown here for a little bit over a month. Nobody's come in and out. We've had to cancel some visitors from different places. But now, May 1st, it's going to be an interesting experience, because we're going to have an on-site self-quarantine process. So the new people that are coming in, they're going to have to spend 10 days, kind of like a Heartland Vipassana, on their own. And we'll bring them food and take care of them, and then we'll practice social distancing on property here. But they won't be kind of in our public spaces, and it's going to be a really interesting experience.
Where are they going to stay? What sort of accommodation do you have for them?
We have belt tents. We have belt tents set up with some beds inside, and nice little places. And we have a lot of outside areas where a lot of decks, and a lot of areas where we can kind of hang out.
Yeah, I like that Heartland Vipassana. And so then what about Collab? Collab should have been coming up this sort of time, right? And so are you doing an online version?
Yeah, in a parallel universe, Collab was last weekend.
Right.
It's up in the air. It's a little bit up in the air. We would like to do it. Yeah, we would like to do a one-day online version, probably in a month or so. We don't have specific dates for it. It's interesting. It would be an interesting experience to try to showcase a real hands-on type festival,
right,
type event as an online platform.
Yeah, because I mean the main thing is about getting practical tools for creating stuff.
Yeah, right.
I suppose you could have the situation where you've instructed everyone, okay, everyone get a pallet, everyone have a hammer, everyone have and follow along. But then, I think that, I went to last collab and the joy of it was working in collaboration with people who you don't necessarily know on a project to get it done in union. Like, joining with other people to create a project. There was a certain pleasure that came out of seeing the finished product that everyone had put a little bit into, So you're opening up May 1st for the Vipassana, and I believe you're going to have a yurt there soon. Nice.
Yeah, we're really excited about that.
We'll have to talk about deck building and everything. So what's the future look like for Heartland? You're going to expand out? What about the governing structures? Are people going to buy in and have governance right? What determines what decisions are made? Is it just you and your mum that are like the presidentes, or is it more a collaborative, collective thing?
Yeah, it's great questions, and we're just a little bit too early to define the exact details of how we're going to exactly function. But before we have to make those steps, we're definitely launching a membership model where people can become members of Heartland Collective on various different levels, and get to feel like they're part of something. Right. And the different types of membership levels would give them opportunities to join us at the PDC, so they can really learn what permaculture is and learn how to create something like this, even if it's in the backyard of their own home to a certain smaller degree.
Right.
Or the membership levels would give them access to Collab Camp Out and to the dance events, and give them access to come and camp here for free X amount of nights a year, and really, I mean, also really give them some sense of participation, in something like this. So if everything goes bad, who knows what the future is going to look for any of us. But if everything gets bad, then there's just a sense of comfort knowing that you are connected on some level with places like Heartland,
right,
so that people have a place to go.
Do you see it like a sort of timeshare, like an eco-village timeshare pod, like like Heartland's here, and then you've got this collective over here, and people just sort of almost hop around to their locations.
Yeah, exactly.
There's been this notion, because inside the hippie type of let's all live together kibbutz style culture that seems to be rampant in California, which is part of the reason I'm here. But within that, there is this notion that we're all equal and we don't need a leader, and there shouldn't be leaders. There should be a socialist Bernie, a socialist style operation. But I've also heard the notion that sometimes you actually need a leader, someone to say, I'm in charge, this is what's happening, and and we'll do it like this until such a time where there's a crystallized net to be able to distribute the power to. What's your take on that, those two approaches?
Yeah, definitely the latter. Definitely the latter part, and I also feel that whenever people come here, and it's so important also not to micromanage like anybody,
Right.
or as little as possible. Just nothing would get done, and because I also believe in shared leadership, even though I believe that right now at this time, because my mom and I make most of the decisions here because we've invested most of the money and we
Right.
put in a radical amount of time. But we do have a really interesting work trade program where we also track time. We track a lot of time that a lot of people put in here.
Right.
And we have spreadsheets that show us exactly how much time people have put in here since the day that we started. And we look forward to creating some type of cryptocurrency of our own, where all of that time goes into time bank, and which also then correlates to a certain type of value over time, and that value would give people voting rights in big decisions that are going to be made here in the future.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's definitely one of those big problems that people with money seem to have the charge because they've bought the land and what have you. But if the community comes and someone stays in the community for a year and gives everything they are to building the community, then, almost at the whim of the owners, they could just say, okay, thanks very much, piss off. And the person has nothing to show for the time that they've invested. What are some ways that we can, get around that?
I mean, part of it is going to be trust. Part of it is definitely trust, and I think that if the owners of the property are expecting people to do those types of things without any return to those people, it feels a little bit unfair.
Yeah.
To us, we provide food, and we don't ask for people to provide more than 4 or 5 hours a day to support, and we also provide a living system. We provide the system, we provide a recreation, we provide an experience for people that I think is a really good fit. If people want to stay for a month or 2 months or 3 months, if people are aligned and people do want to stay for that longer amount of time, after people have been here, for between 6 and 9 months, we definitely want to get into having conversations with regard to how are we actually collaborating, and how can we actually make this fair for somebody long term, because we do want people to be here long term, and we also want the right people to be here long term. We want people that are aligned on all the different levels that we have created. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. And I feel that I am like one of the first to also tell people that, if this isn't perfect for you, if what we're offering, doesn't make you happy, doesn't actually fulfill your life right now, then you're super free to go, and then there is another place out there where you belong. And I would want for them to be at that place, because I wouldn't want this place to take a drop of energy from anybody if they're not in it, wholeheartedly.
Right. So the integrity of the people holding the space obviously is key here, and being clear about that as a starting point, the integral nature. Did you write out then, your visions and your goals and your stuff, or I mean, how did you disseminate what was important from what was not?
Yeah, I mean, we have a full business plan, and we have ways in which we run, all the things that we're doing, and it's also all changing, a little bit, because the world is changing a little bit. So it's fluid, but we definitely do have plans, and we have plans for the future, and we have, and I really believe that what's happening right now is really exciting. And I also mean to say that in the most humble way, because I know a lot of people out there are going through really, really challenging times right now. And at the same time, if I was 3, 4, 5 years ahead, I know that I could offer much more to those people. that are having a really, really hard time.
Right.
But I know that I'm only 3 or 4 or 5 years out from being able to do that
Right.
when something like this were to happen again, or if this stuff gets worse, you know?
So you find these community hubs are being created by you and others as really good absorbent points for when tragedy hits. Do you see this as the sort of beginning of the movement of society? Like, I mean, I know it's been happening, but do you have do you sense that the COVID situation is actually going to push people more into living in communities?
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I'm not sure if people are ready yet. I'm not sure if it's bad enough for people. You know, there's a lot of comfort. There's a lot of comfort to living the lives that we used to live. If things go back as usual, and if people are too attached to that, you know, doing what we're doing out here, especially at the startup phase, it takes hard work.
Right.
You know, and it takes a lot of people to come together and do that, and you have to really want to do it. I don't think that this COVID situation is going to change the mind of any type of majority. And at the same time, I think that some people that were on the fence are really going to jump in.
Right.
And people are going to get started. And because people like me and many others have started, you know, many years back, we can offer them a lot of support. And next time around, or the next time after that, at that point, we're going to see a lot of this stuff start popping up. And by that time, we'll really be ready to support in a big way.
Nice. Jay says, get the infrared sauna set up because it kills COVID. Yeah, and so your new people on May 1st can, you know, you just dose them. You say you have to stay in a sauna for 3 hours. And see how they survive.
Yeah, we're really excited about that partnership. Actually, the vision there is to Jay and Karen. They had a spa in Santa Cruz, and so the vision is to bring that spa into Heartland, which would have float tanks and saunas and various different types of sensory exaltation experiences to offer a healing aspect to our retreat sector.
Nice. What's the stages on that? Is that all being put back because of the COVID?
Yeah, everything is being delayed a little bit. We were hoping to get funding from a few different sources, bank funding, and even though you know, all the paperwork looked good before, but when all of this stuff happened, the banks are doing what banks do at the moment, are on their heels a little bit. So, So we'll see.
And then there's some land next door to Heartland. Is that right?
Yeah. We have about there's a few hundred acres of land available that we're really excited to find the right partner to come on board and really expand what it is that we're doing. So if anybody out there is listening and they feel inspired by what it is that we've been talking about, we're definitely looking for the right partners to come on board and explore how we can co-create.
Nice. Well, Ian Michael, who's about to come on, is your man for connecting dots over there. And you know, obviously, you know Cassandra, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Cool. And she's giving a talk in May on this Foundation for Intentional Communities. You're connected with them?
Yeah, beautiful.
You're connected with that foundation? Is that a good place for people to start for intentional communities?
I'm actually not connected with them, but I've heard much about them and heard it's a good place. Right.
Well, we'll check it out. Well, Anders, thanks so much for coming on, my brother. How can people get in touch with you in Heartland?
I do have a 2-minute video here, or 1-minute video.
Okay.
Can we end with that?
Yeah. Well, let's do it. Well, then we'll bring Ian Michael in.
But before we get there, I think that people get in touch with me through Facebook is a great way, and also through our website, heartlandcollective.org.
Okay, heartlandcollective.org. And you're going to do this video now then? And I'll do a seamless transition into your screen share.
Perfect. Let me know when it's ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
Do it. You've got to share your screen though. Anders,
Yeah.
you've got to share your screen on Zoom. You can't. It's like if you don't share your screen, we can't see it.
Sorry, I thought it was a button on your side.
No, I can't. I can't control your computer.
Got it. We good?
We're good. We can see you. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, stop your share. Okay. So thanks so much for that. So Heartland Collective. Right now we're going to bring in Ian Michael. Oh, I forgot. Was my thing muted then? Could you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Could you hear me before? Okay, well, I muted my mic. So right now we're going to bring in Ian Michael. Thanks so much for that, Anders. People can see Anders at Heartland Collective. And how else can they get in touch with you? Facebook, obviously. Anders? Anders, are you there, mate?
Yeah, I can hear me.
You can hear you. Hi, Ian Michael. You're unmuted. Hello. Good evening. Good afternoon. Oh, Anders went. Well, I wanted you to meet Anders. He just left.
It was nice to briefly see you, Anders. You're still tuned in somewhere.
He just ran off. I think he lost connection and he couldn't hear. Oh, wow. Ian Michael.
Hello, brother.
How you doing?
Excellent.
Where on earth are you?
Well, I have come into the big city of San Jose, Costa Rica. Have been living down in the jungle about 3 hours south of here on the Pacific coast. And just coming and doing some city things like getting a tattoo and drinking plant medicine.
Are you really getting a tattoo?
Yeah.
Great. What are you getting?
It's going to be an Ouroboros, like the snake that's eating its own tail, kind of life and death and transformation.
That makes sense. Makes sense, mate.
Yep.
So what's going down in Costa Rica? Last time I saw you were in California.
Yeah, I can't remember when I was last in California. I think it was maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago. Time has moved into a different kind of dimensionality for many of us, I think.
Right.
I came down here in January, and then I was returning to the Bay every 2 weeks to see my daughter. And as borders started closing
right.
In March, I was actually headed to South Africa to lead a trip to the White Lions and do a leadership retreat. And then
was that connected to the brothers Izzy and Adam, Israel?
No. Very curious.
Yeah. I'm going to connect you to Izzy, White Lions. Izzy, White Lion. Okay, sorry. Carry on. So you were going to go to South Africa.
And the border closed. We were ready to go. I was up in Vancouver, and we were ready to go to South Africa. The border closed, and I did a quick situational analysis of where I could be of best service to the world, and being in the Bay and in lockdown did not feel like the best place for me to serve. So I came down to Costa Rica, where some friends have a farm, and I've been mapping out how we can build a resilient village down there. It's a place where, in these kind of times where food security and water and energy are less stable,
Yeah.
that there's places where the land is generous, and so I've been tuning in and getting to know the land down here in Costa Rica.
Right, because your background, you've degrees in eco resort design and development, and then you've also
Yes.
got degrees in masters in counseling psychology and community mental health, which
Correct.
seem to be fantastically knittable educations to have a holistic community. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have our inner home and our outer home. Our inner home is the one that we deal with every day in ourselves and in relationship to others, and then our outer home, the infrastructure that we use to have shelter, is the other piece that I've worked on. So kind of like a holistic approach to nourishing ourselves and living in harmony with our surroundings.
what do you think's a real linchpin to having successful communities?
Um, well, the community mental health is probably the major linchpin.
Right.
There's like two or three things that I see. One is communities that don't have the financial resources or the capital or um, the support to build what they want to build. That's kind of like the first threshold. If you make it past that, or you bootstrap something together, or you're well financed and you actually build something, then the next major challenge is getting the operational engine and kind of the systems and the agriculture and food and everything actually functioning harmoniously. And then the third thing, which is, I would say, the primary downfall of most communities and often retreat centers as well, is the interpersonal dynamics and people willing to have enough humility to recognize that they make mistakes and that we're fallible, and then to work out those interpersonal dynamics. And just like cleaning our house, if you don't clean your house or your dishes, they start to pile up and it becomes like untenable, and you no longer have any dishes to eat with. Similarly, in a community, if you don't have a mechanism for doing some kind of emotional house cleaning and relational house cleaning, then you get these issues that kind of stack up to the point where you have like a major deconstruction of the social fabric.
Interesting. So, okay, the deconstruction of the social fabric. I liked that as a starting as a carrying on point. So, I mean, do you use any tools like astrological personality assessment, psychometrics, to see how people fit together before, or are you like Anders and going on a very sort of organic process?
Yeah, more of an organic process, more of a process based in Gestalt. I lived at Esalen for 4.5 years, and my background, when I went to CIIS, California Institute of Integral Studies, I studied community mental health and integral psychology there. Their model was very much based on the recovery model of mental health, and basically that was very much like social justice and focused on those kind of dynamics. And then when I moved to Esalen and lived there, I got an expansion of my knowledge of Gestalt processes, and then I think that Gestalt kind of merged into and became a number of different techniques. One that's called circling, but some of the basic tenets were that you have regular periodic opportunities for the community or management or people or teams to come together and to air the challenges that they're experiencing with one another in what's called a safe container, which basically means a place where you're not going to have negative consequences for truly speaking what your experience is.
Right.
And there's different techniques of communication, nonviolent communication, There's T group formats. There's a lot of different formats for how you actually run those meetings. But that's more the school that I came from, and I saw the value and benefit of it. I also saw that there was an old style of Gestalt at Esalen in the time of Fritz Perls and others that was very much like me-centric, where you could just kind of like air all your dirty laundry and project all your childhood challenges onto the collective or onto another individual. And Gestalt evolved over time to be a much more we-centered approach, where it's like there was a consciousness of the collective field, and that individuals that were speaking something maybe from an individual genesis, but it could also be that there's just intelligence for the overall collective of the group.
Right.
Yep.
So I mean, it sounds like the organic phase is the way to go for collective intelligence.
With clear structure and like accountability and consistency of that process. Yeah.
Right. So, some of the work you were doing over in California, I'll explain the basis of what your work looks like. What are you doing?
Well, I have been consulting retreat centers the last 2 years. So mostly on design, construction, and operations. And then about 2 years ago, Stan Groff and his nonprofit came to me and were interested in building a center for transpersonal psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And that morphed into a company called Holos. And with Holos, we produce experiences that remind people of their innate wholeness and also their interconnection with all things. And so we do that through retreats, and then we also do it through building out infrastructure and places where people can thrive.
Is that the Holos University that Norm Shealy is involved with?
No, different
Holos.
Different project. So I would love to be connected to him as well.
Yeah, I was actually going to call him up because he got mentioned yesterday by somebody, by Tiffany, by Rose Soti, who studied at the other CIHS down in San Diego, which is a similar school to CIIS. In my days, 15 years ago, when I was in England doing energy field stuff, both of those schools always came up together as kind of like the leaders in the stuff. But Norm Shealy is amazing, and obviously a lot of background in the Gestalt type psychology.
Beautiful.
So there's 3 people I'm connecting you to now. Anders ran off, so him, Shealy, and Norm. Cool. Okay, so what is it special about Costa Rica? Do you think Costa Rica, because it keeps coming up in my field?
Yeah. So I'll make this a little bit longer story because we've got a little time together. But I grew up in the middle of Alaska, outside of a town called Fairbanks. It's called the Golden Heart of Alaska. And my parents were more or less back to the land hippies. My mom, had a number of different little products that she made, things called Save-A-Sacs. And my dad was a custom home builder and cabinet maker and a lot of different things. So very like rootsy, hands-on childhood gardening. We had pigs and goats and hunted and did all these things. So I got a flavor for what it is to live off the land and to really be connected to your community. And then as I became a teenager, I decided that I was more interested in a plant-based lifestyle. So I became a vegan when I was 17, and I realized pretty quickly that living sustainably in Alaska as a plant-based or on a plant-based diet is like pretty hard. Right. It's like a lot of work. Like we can go pick blueberries and have gardens and do a lot of canning, but I was drawn to be somewhere further south.
Right.
So when I was 18, a series of events happened that led me to hitchhike from Alaska to Mexico, and the goal was to get to Belize or Costa Rica and find a community that was land-based and that I could be, engaged in living off the land and learn that ecosystem. So hitchhiked from Alaska to Mexico, had an experience in the jungle, in the waterfalls in Mexico that led me to kind of like a state of samadhi where I dissolved into the waterfalls and the jungle and the sun, and I felt complete with my journey at that time. And then many, many years later, after a couple different iterations of my life, I felt the call to come back down to Central America and went to Costa Rica 6 years ago. And a lot of my life, I've been honing in on places where there's an abundance of clean water, of arable, good, fertile soil, um, the presence of the five elements, or at least earth, air, fire, and water in balance in some way. So the basic constituents of life. And so that led me to Costa Rica. So for the last 6 years, I've been looking around Costa Rica, getting to know different communities, getting to know different landscapes here, and looking for what are the optimal conditions for human thriving.
Mm.
And very early on, I was looking. I wrote a paper in high school about population, overpopulation, and just the carrying capacity of the Earth. And without major technological advances, which are happening, the human species is very much consuming more resources than the Earth is producing, and so a lot of us are really aware of that. And I was looking for places where you could regionally be living in respect to the ecosystems and in balance with the ecosystems. So that scale of human thriving and civilization is what I've been looking for, and I found that all over Costa Rica. There's regions and pockets where the amount of food being produced, the waters, the different energy sources, they all can be in harmony with the local ecosystem and in respect to that. So I've landed in an area called the Diamante Valley, and during this time of the global pandemic, it's just become so acutely evident that there are ways to live in harmony with the land that are much more resilient and sustainable. And we're seeing that where there's these large population centers in the world, New York, San Francisco, places in Italy, where unless you have very tight controls on society, you have the potential for a disease or for any kind of shock to the system to have catastrophic effects.
Right.
So, what I'm looking at is what is it that builds greater resilience? And part of it is less density. It's just like in agriculture, when you have a monocrop, when you're just growing corn, when you're just growing beans, whatever it is, the opportunity for
devastation,
a shortage of water or a pest to come in and wipe it out is much higher. So it's like, how can we, in a biomimetic way, in a way that mimics other living systems, how can we thrive and live? So I see that in Costa Rica, I see it in other places, New Zealand, Canada. So I have children on the North American continent, Turtle Island, and so I'm looking for the places where myself, my children, my community, and others can really thrive in harmony with an ecosystem. So I've chosen a region in Costa Rica, and I've chosen a region in Canada where I feel like that's very doable.
Amazing. So resilience is really about diversity. Because as society, we've been moving towards these monocratic, or at least away from them, for the last 2,000 years. We've been separating people into different categories, both racially, financially, educationally. We segregate, and we do it with science as well. So do we need a real shift in the consciousness of the planet with regards to how we separate things in order to be able to live in communities that are diverse again?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely a shift in consciousness, a shift in awareness. I have a particular view on consciousness that actually everything is conscious in different forms, and then our own human awareness of our impacts. So there's in psychology, one of the theories that I was taught is about the gap that can be between intent and impact. And that can be as simple as something that you say to someone else, and your intent may be very benevolent, but then the impact is really negative. And so similarly, human beings may have this great intent of growth and providing for people, and then the actual impact on the rest of life is catastrophic. And so it's honing that awareness, and like you said, a higher consciousness of what are each of our impacts. on a daily basis, on a collective basis, and we really have a long way to go in growing that level of awareness and consciousness. And one of the things I thought was really interesting is there's this larger issue that we are all facing or going to face of climate change. And the climate has changed many times over the eons, over the billions of years that Earth has been gestating and birthing life.
Yeah.
But this moment of climate change will have major effects on civilization. And during this time of COVID, when there's like major economic contraction, people are mostly at home, there's still like a huge amount of CO2 emissions that are happening. And so it's like there's the shift in consciousness, which is the first layer of awareness, and then there's the shift in actions, and then the subsequent like technologies and things, the infrastructure that needs to be built and changed, the patterns that need to be changed of the way that we habitate this planet. So I think that the shifting consciousness is certainly a piece of it, and then that ends up being reflected in the actual embodied changes of behaviors and structures.
So it's like it's almost consciousness has to change first, because I think a lot of people are waiting for like the change to be brought to them. It's like, when it all changes, then I'll adapt or something.
Right.
Is there a certain magic? I mean, we are on Witchy Wizardy Wednesday, which are very loose topics, but or themes. But the notion is, what's the sort of secret ingredient you feel to getting this? Because look, to us, it's obvious, right? It's obvious about thriving and being in balance with nature and all, but it seems like to the majority of the world it's not obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think are some of the key magical realizations or what would be required to awaken the rest of the population?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how magical thinking you want to get. It's like,
however much you want.
Yeah, I mean, we could take it to the level of, okay, well, it takes a major shock to the attention to get people's attention right now.
Right.
So, the way that our social media and our news and our systems and our technology are currently designed, they are mining our attention. Our attention is monetized, and you gain value in society as a company by capturing more attention. And so if things are set up in that way, it will take a major force outside of that system to get enough people's attention to actually shift consciousness and behavior.
Right. And the way we're going in society and technology is that it's only going to look worse. It's only the amount of overload of data. So, I mean, what, should we just sort of shut the internet down?
Well, that would be a really interesting exercise. I have experienced being here in Costa Rica some technology challenges, like not having a phone number anymore and having to go back to the U.S. to save my phone number from Google Fi and
maybe I should stop sending you text messages then if you're not on that number.
I'm not getting any text messages. Yeah. So there was definitely a period of time where I had no SIM card and no Wi-Fi at the farm and a lot of different things where it was so frustrating most of the time, and then there would be these moments of clarity and appreciation for the state that I was in. But at this time of the global pandemic, everybody is becoming an Instagram and Facebook star and running programs and all these things.
People are just doing interviews every day. People are just going live streaming. I mean, just randoms, and then just interviewing their friends who have some wisdom and.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Who would do something like
Who
that?
would do that? So what can we do? What can we do? Because
it's really interesting. It's something I've been an advocate for, even in Gestalt circles or other contexts, where it's like you need to listen to the quieter voices, and then if the quieter voices are not listened to for long enough, they get louder and they come through in subversive ways. It's just like trauma in our own system. If we ignore something for too long, then it'll come back in a way that is much louder.
Right.
So
right.
similarly, like the earth is giving us signs and symbols of like, hey, this doesn't feel good. This causes more death than life. And if we dull our senses to the point where we no longer listen to the messages of the earth, then she will come back with more vengeance and more clarity in her voice. And I know that I'm personifying a force or like a force like life or Mother Earth, but for me it is an actual like dialogue with a being, with a beingness. And so
say that again, with a what?
What's that?
You say that again. It's a dialogue with what?
Yeah, it's a dialogue with an actual being or a beingness. You know, like we call her Gaia or Mother Earth or you know, like life force. There's an actual animate, conscious, aware, self-referential system that is operating on Earth, and we get to listen to it or not. And my hope is that we choose to listen to it. And it's going to take some discipline. It's like I got forced into it by my technology not working.
Right.
So I would go down to the waterfalls or see the hummingbird or, you know, like commune with what was happening around me. And that was really centering and felt good to my nervous system. But the discipline that it takes to say, okay, I'm not going to be on my device or engaged with technology right now, and I'm going to go plant my garden, is a stretch for some people.
Absolutely. Maybe having it this time when technology is so, people are so using it 20 times more, maybe to have a cut-off period, 5 p.m., that's it. No tech, no phone, no computers, no TV, or even...
There was a really sweet practice at Esalen where there was no technology during meal times, and there were people that were kind of militant about it, and like as much as people didn't like to be called out for getting on their device at a meal, they shut the internet off and they encouraged people to just be present with the meal and with each other. That was a good practice.
Yeah, definitely. With this wake up, this the Gaia, paying attention to the being, the Gaia. Would you say that there's almost an intelligence there?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
And then with that intelligence, is it what the ancient civilizations would do by worshipping nature and different aspects? Like they created a god out of the ocean, and a god of the wind, and a god of the thunder, and it's like, are we going backwards, or have we missed something in losing the story?
That's a really good question. I guess what comes to me is, are we experiencing life as sacred? And what are all the roads that we use to get there? So maybe not so dependent on the individual stories. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to recognize that we each have our own way of relating to the sacred, and not to have a monopoly on that.
Right.
So just really allowing each of us to have our own way of being, and maybe it is that we're worshiping the wind or the sun or the earth or the waters.
One of the things that I'm hot into is the etymology of things, the origins of words, and Jeffrey Armstrong is coming on, who's on Friday, who's a Vedic specialist, and Sanskrit is basically the origin of most languages on the planet. So but aside from that, the word metaphor, I mean, he might tell me it comes from a deeper Sanskrit, but the word metaphor means to carry over from. And metaphor is like a story that we tell to describe the meaning or the heart of whatever we're passing over from. And in a way, I wonder if the deities that were worshipped were like metaphors for tuning into the fundamentals of nature.
Absolutely. And it seems like the nature of the mind to want to have something to concretize things within So it could be a metaphor, it could be an archetype, but basically it's hitting the symbolic register of our sense-making capacity. So once you have a symbol that represents something in the outside world, then your brain can start to wire to that and can create a feedback loop of, oh yeah, I recognize that symbol. And then those symbols eventually become words, and we try to describe them through written and verbal words. But even at a more limbic level of our brain, like symbols are powerful.
Right.
So I think that's where those original deities came from, because it's like, oh, this is the wind, and the wind is all of these potential emotions and responses, and if we can symbolize that in a god, then it's like, okay, that holds that, and we know we can start to relate to wind in that way.
Right. So, I mean, it doesn't have to take away, and as you said, flexibility is so important. It doesn't have to take away, if you're a devout Christian and you worship JC, the fact that you pick up a little statue, for example, a little horn statue, and, if you get a sense from this of some sort of energy incarnate in it, like, oh, it's the big welcoming mama, the hugging mama style, slightly naughty, I don't know, devil, whatever. The point is, if you can allow yourself to feel the essence of that other representation, then what do you think about that as a process of kind of gestaltly processing your emotions through animating these objects, these...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they definitely can represent aspects of ourselves and allow us to see it from an outside perspective and look at something objectively. And for myself, I am cautious about like creating an idol or like something that is too concretized. So I really appreciate a lot of the traditions, like the sand paintings in Tibetan Buddhism, where they create this elaborate, beautiful depiction of the heavens or of a deity, and then they wipe it all away.
Right.
And so like there's something about that, like what I was talking about, the Ouroboros and like the snake. It's like there's something about that process of just like allowing something to concretize into a symbol, and then also like holding it lightly, and not getting, like most of the world religions ended up becoming devoted to a book or an ideology, and it's interesting that like idol and ideology have a similar genesis of the word, and so I think when we get too locked in and holding on to one idea, then that's where we lose the bigger perspective of the context of all of it, and also the mystery, and that's where like the early versions of many of these religions and practices were very much mystic, where it was a living experience of the mystery. And there may have been ways to describe it in symbols or in deities, but I really feel like it was more of an embodied living experience than it was an idea.
Right. And in fact, maybe you could see that as the difference between cities and nature. Is that, cities are an idea of something. They're created, mental model and built. They're not alive. The people in them are alive, but nature is completely alive. I mean, the trees and the forests. I mean, I'm here in the redwoods in, San Rafael, and so it's breathing and flexible. So it's both, the both is a tree over there that is a permanent structure. Every morning that tree is there. Every morning that tree, every night it's there. But it's not fixed. It's growing, it's moving. And so then, do you think this application of this need to both be fixed and to be flexible is a kind of a route that is applicable to every aspect of existence.
Oh my gosh, I really love that you took it there. It's just so beautiful to see the way that you were able to take it to the macro and holding the like city versus nature, human civilization versus the wildness, and then take it all the way into your home and and into the basic processes of life itself. Like those two things definitely exist, where it's like the opportunity for expansion and adaptation, and also the drive of a particular direction.
Right.
And it's curious that like even the DNA and the helix, it has both the flow and the structure.
It seems like society in general is a bit stuck on that masculine, patriarchal, fixed, crystallized. What is it? It is something. Is it good or evil? It must be one or the other. It's like we're really kind of invested into the solidity of duality, and I think people might be scared of the non-duality because it doesn't offer a solid entity, a solid thing of knowing, and so I think people may be scared of going crazy because like, oh well, how can I have an opinion and not hold an opinion? That means I'm schizophrenic. There's two voices in my head. Oh, what do you say to people who might say that a bit less dramatically than me?
Well, I mean, I can relate to it. I certainly have those moments of confronting the wildness in myself or in the world that cause a response of, oh my gosh, am I going to return to some level of structure or normalcy? And so it's an interesting, like I find myself titrating my own system, my own consciousness between that state of total disillusion and surrender and trust, and then those moments of control and focus and structure. Um, yeah, it's been interesting being here, and I'm back in the city, and it's a city in the midst of an amazing country and ecosystem, but it has much more structure and energetics like that. And then down in the jungle, it's like, even though there's a cabin and all these things, we're definitely experiencing nature in its wildness, and there will be, like a bug explosion because the rains come, and then some bugs hatch, and then the house is inundated by bugs, and not a lot of people are accustomed to that kind of a reality.
Right.
So like it's a little experience of like, whoa, this is way out of my control. I don't control the like 6 inches of rain that just happened, and I don't control the bugs, and I just need to find my equanimity inside of this very dynamic wild system.
Right.
And there's a part of my nature that absolutely thrives and loves that, and then there's a part of my nature that is like, holy cow, I'm like way out of my league. And it's like similarly in meditation or in a psychedelic journey, it's like material may arise inside you that seems very overwhelming, and then it's like, okay, well, who can help me, guide me through this, or how am I going to be able to navigate this through my own system? And that's really like, I think that is part of that expansion of consciousness that you're talking about, is the recognition of like, we are both massive players in our choice making and how we construct reality around us, and we are massively incapable of controlling the universe. It's like there's so many forces around us that are much greater than ourselves.
Everything's got this mathematical as above, so below. This yin and the yang, the snake eating its own tail, the infinity Mobius strip loop of the entire universe is getting compressed into itself, and I say it's sort of like burning into the magma plasma of creation and melting out of existence and then forming itself and back in the other way. The question is, with regards to this sort of surrender control aspect, do you think it's more beneficial to like practice one than the other, or to try and have them both simultaneously?
Yeah, that's the practice that I've been exploring is holding both simultaneously. Like if you imagine the sun, it's like holding a pretty good center, and then it's just like radically exploding and shedding light all over the, the solar system and the universe. So it's like, how can we in our own system become that toroidal force, where there's like a clear center, and then there's also an expansion and a surrender. So there's the clear center, expansion, surrender, and we don't know necessarily what is going to be transmuted through that process. Yeah, that's I think part of the art of mastery of consciousness and being human. It's like returning to some node of an individuated source of awareness, and then recognizing that there's like a whole context, a whole universe of other sentience that we need to be adapted to.
So what are you excited about this change that's happening now in society? Do you think that it's going somewhere, or do you think it's a next step of another 20 different catastrophic events that have to happen before we really wake up?
A whole thread and wave of different things emerged inside me when you said that. Like, one is there's a lot of possible scenarios of what could happen from this moment. There's a Zen koan that talks a lot about like we shall see. You know, it's like something that appears to be a calamity may end up being actually really beautiful. Something that appears to be a real blessing may end up being a calamity. So like that's where I sit in the center of it all, like without really passing judgment on the negativity or positivity of this current situation, with a deep recognition of the great deal of suffering that's happening, with a great deal of recognition of the amount of change in the systems that's possible, with a great deal of recognition of the beauty of the stillness and of like a pause and an ability to like look around, and instead of just continuing things as they are, to have a pattern interrupt where we get a choice. The Viktor Frankl, who was in the internment camps in Germany, he wrote this book, Man's Search for Meaning, and basically what I distilled from his work is that the only real freedom we have is the choice of how we respond to any moment. So it's like there's the we shall see, and then there's what is the subjective way that I'm going to show up, that you're going to show up in this moment. And so I'm listening to the intuition of my body, of my heart, of my spirit, and letting that direct me through these times. But on the larger scale of what is going to happen and what does this mean, I think it really means for myself that I get a chance to hone my vessel and my expression and my focus on how I can bring the most, you could call it coherence, the most beauty to my life and the life of those around me.
Yeah, I love that. It's all about the only real freedom we have is how we choose to respond. That was beautifully put. Wow, yeah. So, and by the way, did you get connected to India? You knew her before, right? You went down to the place on Saturday?
The beautiful crew down at Imaloa. I didn't end up seeing them. We've been in kind of a little pod of people, and mostly in the waterfalls. And I've been having this very visceral experience where like when you have a new lover, and it's like you cannot wait to be in your beloved's arms again, or gazing in their eyes, and like, so I'm really deeply in love with this land in the Diamante Valley and the waterfalls there. So like, if I'm on too many Zoom calls, or if I like am trying to engage with a bunch of people, like I'm actually just yearning to be completely like just like loved on by these waterfalls, and just like, oh, it's so sensuous and good. So I haven't seen India on this trip. I saw her with like a couple months ago with some Colombian mamos, the Kogi that came. But right now, I'm like, yeah, I'm really getting to know this land and like cultivating a pretty deep romance with the rocks and the water and the
Nice.
howler monkeys and the yeah.
Wow, that sounds great. So what does it look like? What are some of the really exciting projects that you're involved with down there?
Yeah, there's a town called San Salvador that I have been really cultivating relationships in. Some friends have a 150-acre organic farm there with a couple cabins and some beautiful caretakers. And so I've been getting to know that region and the people there so that I can really honor the stewards that have been there and listen to the land and what it's wanting and identifying places where we can build homes, put little tiny homes that are in harmony with the landscape and bring more people down that want to tend
Hmm.
land and care for each other and do healing work. And so that's what I'm most excited about is building a home for wholeness down there in the San Salvador Diamante Valley area. And it's like the generosity of this land is so significant, like the waterfalls and the soil itself. It's like it's all just like, oh yeah, if you give even like a little ounce of love to me, I'm just going to bless you up and take really good care of you. So
Right.
that's what I'm really excited about is like building that home base that you and others can come down and be
I'm
nourished.
coming. I'm coming. I'm just going to book my flight.
Great. Oh,
So
yeah, no flights,
no
but
shit.
next month.
I have to drive. Um, uh, what one of the things I had concerns about, because obviously we're aware of the changing climate, and the chances are it's going to get hotter and it's going to get drier where it's drier, and it's probably going to get it might get wetter where it's wet, but we definitely know it's going to get drier where it's dry. And so, I'm in California. I'm in the Bay Area. It's just enough water here now, but still we have dry periods and droughts and stuff. So my thinking is that I don't want to be anywhere south because of the heat and the dryness. Now, how does Costa Rica stand in the potential raising of the global temperature and a drying out of water resources?
Yeah, there's a lot of different scenarios and projections and ways that it's been simulated. There will be an increase in temperature likely in the Central American region.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go up very high though to get into a totally different ecosystem. So like the valley that I'm living in is at about 1,200 feet, and then behind it goes a mountain that goes all the way up to four 4,000 meters, like 12,000 feet. So there's
Mm-hmm.
like a huge spectrum of ecosystems in a pretty small region, and you can kind of choose what feels right to you. But yeah, down on the coast, it's very humid and hot, and that's one reason that I chose this region of Costa Rica because there's other peninsulas
Mm.
that are much drier and hotter, and people like it for vacations because they don't have the peskiness of rain.
Right.
But then when you look at it in terms of like a 500-year plan, it's like where do my children's children or my friends' children
Right.
go
Right.
to really be thriving? And we may be reaching carrying capacity without like a major technological leap. We may be we've probably reached the carrying capacity of the earth for the number of humans. As we get into new techniques of growing food and regenerative agriculture and new technologies for how we produce energy, there's real potential for like sustaining this number of humans, but
Mm.
we're still in a very much a growth curve, and so these large centers of commerce and humans, if they don't have food supply regionally, and something like this pandemic happens, you have major food systems that are collapsing
Right.
because you know the infrastructure isn't running anymore to keep the machine going. So that's why I'm looking more regionally and also looking at the climate change scenarios. So the other area I've been looking at is interior BC, and yeah, there's different maps of like how much hotter is it going to get? Will that cause major forest fires? And and there are simulations of all of this, and then there's also like there's the butterfly effect, and
Right.
we don't actually know. Our
Right.
best guesses are that for myself that these regions feel like intact ecosystems, ideal conditions for human thriving in the next 100 years. And then there's the I don't know.
Right. So again, it seems to be that application of the solid crystalline aspect, the facts, the figures, the projections, the models, and then there's the sort of non-solid, intuitive sensing and openness to the communication with the rest of the divine, Gaia.
Exactly.
So okay, it's very exciting. I'm excited to learn more about the different projects you've got going on. What are some of the models that are being looked at, like ownership wise? Is there an overlord and then there's sort of benevolent overlord, like it seems to be the most of the community models are these days, or have you come up with something else?
Yeah, it's been gestating inside me about what's possible, and I also feel like it's coming through a lot of other people. And there have been models experimented with over the years, all the way from like a very more tribal approach, which is you bring something in and it gets shared
Right.
more or less equally, and we each have our different skills and everything we bring to the table. And then more formalized into things like collectives or cooperatives. And I think that those are becoming in vogue again. And for myself, I feel like there's a lot of people that aren't ready to transition into that. I've been really contemplating this, like who would be ready to build enough trust among, let's say, 5 families where we all just pool all the resources we have,
Right.
all the income that we have, and we make sure that everyone's taken care of. I don't know that we've reached that level of like surrender and consciousness to see that like that the collective is stronger than the individual. And so the way that I'm relating to it right now and structuring projects is where there's an ownership in the collective, and then there's also like sovereignty in your own space.
Right.
So I lived at Esalen, and the staff housing and the guest housing are all owned by the nonprofit. And more or less, the executive director and the board make the decisions on how those resources are allocated and used. And then there's like decision-making processes below that. But still a very top-down approach. And one thing that I experienced was that people want to have a sense of security in themselves and their own little hut.
Right.
So the way that I'm structuring things down here is either connecting communities or individuals to pieces of land that are contiguous or next to the main farm and center.
Right.
So people can have ownership in the farm and center collectively, and then have their own little pod, their own little home.
Right.
And I'm finding a lot of like interest in that model, where there's some people that have created enough cohesion in their little group of people where they have like 3 to 5 homes that they're going to do on that lawn, on that land.
Right.
Some people want their individual hut, but everybody does want to contribute to something meaningful that is collective. So you need a strong attractor field for that, and one, it could be a farm, could be like a common endeavor you're doing. What we're doing in the Diamante Valley is a holistic healing center, and part of the attractor field is these really powerful waterfalls. So that's the way that I'm relating to the ownership structure right now. Once that gets humming, once there's enough aggregate support for it and people living there, then you have all kinds of opportunities to bring people in that are volunteering or that like are given a room or a bed in exchange for their services, and you make sure that they're cared for and that they have health care and all of these pieces.
Right.
So, you know, this is an ideal condition for all of that because the cost of living is low enough.
Right.
It's a little harder to run a model like that in the Bay unless you have a huge infusion of capital.
Absolutely, yeah. And so then, I mean, that again model seems to be harnessing that crystalline nature and the flexibility of, you know, the crystalline nature is you've got your core group, you've got your core beings, and then around it come the flexibility of the people visiting. You've got your core area, your specific place, and then around it is the flexibility of the community. So it seems like this harnessing of opposites really has a coherence to it, a fundamental nature to it, which other models don't seem to embrace. So what about the laws of the land in Costa Rica? How much, because there are certain countries where foreigners can't own land, and what about the government stability and stuff like that? Are people really thinking about Costa Rica? Not only are the concerns come to mind are the bugs, which I do want to talk about, like, is there tons of mosquitoes there? Is it just mosquito world? You have to sleep under a mosquito net?
I haven't had any mosquito issues. People do sleep under nets. There was a permaculturist that told me recently that you'll be able to tell the health of an ecosystem by looking at the bugs, and if you have many different sizes of bugs, then it means that you have a healthy ecosystem. It's like one marker, at least down here.
Diversity.
And I can tell you, man, there are bugs everywhere from like the size of the tip of a pin needle to like, there was this one grasshopper, like a good 6-incher, that was jumping around the house and flying. And I was trying to catch him with a like blender thing. Not to
You
hurt
trying
him.
to blend up a grasshopper, Ian Michael? That is
Well, I just
disgraceful.
grabbed the blender thing, and I didn't think it would hurt him.
Thought you were a
He
vegetarian.
was not so impressed.
Right.
And he flew off the window straight into my face, and like they have grippers. So anyway, it's been an adventure down here. So yes, there are bugs, and that may be one of the more challenging things, at least in the jungle. It's not so much up here in the city, but from a social standpoint, a place like Costa Rica or Canada, while there's a threshold to getting people in the country and to residency, which is reasonable. The actual like functioning of society is for me more stable than most, and certainly more stable than the projections I see of what's happening in the U.S. Or any other Central American country. So sometimes they call it the Switzerland of Central America. There's no army because there's a number of treaties that protect Costa Rica. There's no major oil issues because they're on 99.9% renewable energy. There's a great healthcare system, a great school system.
But are you included in that healthcare system as a foreigner? I mean, what's the visa?
Yeah.
So you're a resident?
I'm not yet a resident, and I'm just like one small step away. So there's a couple routes to residency. You can either own a business, you can invest here, or you can work.
Okay, so it's not too difficult, and then you can own property.
Yes,
and land.
Correct. Yep.
Because I always remember the fear factors from Thailand, where it's like you can't own land as a foreigner, so you always have to partner with a local. Who in Thailand they were all gangsters, and especially on the islands. So
and that's where that mindset piece, like we're still very much not even necessarily needing to relate to it as ownership. It's more like a base sense of security. Like, can I continue to call this home and feel safe and secure? And so that's, I feel like, yeah, you can own land here, you can own homes. It's pretty straightforward. There's a process. You get a lawyer and you do it. And I'm purchasing a little house for myself. That I'll probably start living in next month.
Great. So if people want to get involved with communities and they want to start to talk, they want to start this process of making the move to maybe a community where they have their own independent house and yet they're attached in the next field to a shared space where they grow crops and have meeting houses and saunas and whatever else. Where should they start?
I can connect people to a number of different communities that are doing that. And you can start on just researching on the internet. There's New Mundo, which has like lots of different opportunities in Central America. But our project is diamantevida.com, and because it's in the Diamante Valley, anybody's welcome to contact me. I have an email, ian.michael.hebert, Hebert.
That's how you say your last name.
Yeah, Hebert.
Yeah, I always called you Ian Michael, so I never had to say your last name.
Yeah, we were French settlers in Quebec, like around the time of Jacques Cartier, like beginning, and so there's definitely some like ancestral healing too, and just like how I relate to land, how I relate to the local people, and that's why I'm doing this really slowly, and it's like really get to know the neighbors, get to know the history of the land, the mamos, the Kogi elders that came from Colombia and were looking at Costa Rica and like different lands here and blessing them, they said that it's always really important to ask permission from the grandfather and the grandmother of the land before you do anything. And that may be a human being, and that may be a spirit, that may be a rock. So I've been, like in that constant dialogue. We've brought elders from the mountains, of the local tribes, the Bree, and just like, okay, like, are we in right relationship with everything that's happening here?
Asking permission is such an interesting thing that I've been, looking into and practicing a lot more. Even asking permission from, like, I've been constructing these like temple areas in the house. Basically they're shrines, but they're not shrines, they're spaces, whatever. But to put something with something else and this, it's like each time you can sit and breathe and ask the question, does this belong here? Do I belong here? Do I feel, even questions about yourself and your location within space and time. The curiosity seems to be powerful.
Absolutely. I love that framing.
What is it about the innocence? And we're coming to the end, but I did want to just get this. What is it about that sitting in the sort of innocence of not knowing? Because in society we're so told, like, you should know, be quick and answer quickly and be confident and fake it till you make it and stuff like that. So what is the actual power in being curiously unknowing, humbly unknowing?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you've woven so many times this thread of being clear and directive, and then also the surrender. And I really love that that's been a central theme of our conversation, and just the humility. There's humility in both. There's a humility in the opening.
Right.
And there's a humility in, like, okay, this is the step that I know how to take right now.
Right.
And you're stepping into the unknown. And that's really, like, we have these ideas and constructs of what our lives are and what we're doing. And then the actual reality is, like, we don't really know. And there's a great mystery that we're all a part of. And so that humility of, like, each step, it's like chop wood, carry water.
Right.
Like, what level of care and attention and love are we bringing to each moment? And that's really service. Like your shirt says, love to serve. It's like how do you touch the world, and then how does the world touch you back?
I love that, having the humility, even in the times that you know what you need to do. Like, okay, I'm an expert in this. I've been doing it 50 years. I know what I need to do. Great. Be humble about it. Like, be humbly knowing you know what needs to do. And holding humility almost creates this third observer point to the specific and the flexible. It almost creates this third triad, and that this trinity has come up time and time again in these conversations. I've done about 40 interviews now, but it keeps coming up, this trinity, and it seems yet again that's coming up here as where real magic occurs, is when you can hold two opposite notions at the same time, or ways of being, and be the third, which is this combination of the two opposites.
There's a quote from Rumi, to paraphrase, and it says, "There is a clear bead at the center. There is no edges to my loving now." And, like, as soon as there's that third, there's you, me, and then there's the clarity between us. And then once that is clear, then the unfolding of love is just effortless.
Ian.michael.hebert, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure having you on. Good work over in Costa Rica. Maybe you can post some things under the video, under the live stream, and share the video so people can see. But post some stuff about you and the projects you're working on, some links. That'd be
Yep.
great. And I look forward to coming down.
Yes.
I am ever growingly excited to come to Costa Rica and see what's going on there.
Beautiful, brother. Thank you. Pura vida.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. So I'll just close out here. Oh, God, what a show. Thank you to my guests, Anders from Heartland, who Ian Michael needs to connect in with, but he ran off too soon. And then ian.michael.hebert down in Costa Rica, wonderful community builders for harnessing the magic of what is present. And it seems like we have all the keys we need. And what is most important is the trust. Not trust in some other being or some other thing, but trust inside yourself that you both have skill sets and fixed aspects of self that you can use. And at the same time, this humble surrender. Both are humble, but the surrender to the flexibility of what is to come. Holding both of those notions, those approaches humbly, allows us to sit inside the witness space. And with our breath, that is where we tune into what is harmonically coherent with the world, with our environment,